This next source is called A Description of the Coasts of North and South-Guinea and of Ethiopia Inferior by John Barbot. This was published in 1732, about 50 years after the one we just read. We're going to be on page 8 and 9. We're going to be on page 9 mainly, but we're going to start right here, the bottom of page 8, to get some context. He says, besides the Americans and East Indians, though inhabiting the same parallel zone, are not black. So he's saying Americans and East Indians are not black. I believe he's talking about Native Americans here. He says they're not black, and particularly throughout, we're on page 9 now, and particularly throughout all America, it is most certain there was never any black till they were carried thither by Europeans. Though so vast a part of that continent lies within the torrid zones, as is a great part of the kingdom of Mexico, most of Peru and Brazil, and which never produced any native black. So as we can see right here, the context is clearly talking about black people. The same type of black people that exist now in the 21st century. He says blacks were never in America till they were brought there by Europeans. He's obviously referring to black slaves. Let's keep going. Marmol, in my opinion, assigns the best reason. The blackness of Ethiopians, he's talking about Ethiopians now, another people group who are part of the black race. Although we're not the same people as them, they would be classified as the black race, quote unquote Africans. The blackness of Ethiopians and other sooty nations, sooty means black, like soot. The blackness of Ethiopians and other sooty nations does not proceed either from the excessive heat of the sun or from the extreme dryness of their land, or other things assigned by astrologers. For if it were so, all blacks would turn white in temperate climates after 2 or 3 generations, and the Europeans in like manner would turn black in the Negro countries. But experience testifies the contrary. So he's saying that it's not true that you turn different colors in different climates. This blackness in those people must therefore proceed from the blood or race. He's saying that people are black because that's what they are. They're black. That's their genetic makeup. And it may perhaps be on account of the malediction of Noah on Cam, his disrespectful son, as the diversity of languages was the curse of Nimrod and of the giants that were building the Tower of Babel. Okay, so here's the part we want right here. That this blackness must be in the blood or race, as Marmol argues, can be further proved from this observation made, that the Jews of the Portuguese race, always intermarrying one with the other, the children resemble their fathers and mothers' complexion, and thus this particularly tawny color perpetuates itself with little or no diminution wheresoever they inhabit. Even in northern countries, whereas the German Jews, as for example those of Prague, are white as most of their German countrymen, which shows what an error most people are in who think all Jews are tawny. So he's saying that the same blackness that blacks in America had, that Ethiopians have, he's saying that that same blackness can be observed in the Jews of the Portuguese race. Now as we go on, I'm going to connect the dots between Portuguese Jews and American blacks, but he's undeniably comparing the same blackness that American blacks or blacks in America had during that time period and the blackness that Ethiopians have to the blackness of the Portuguese Jews. A literal blackness, people who are black. Otherwise, why mention blacks in America and Ethiopians? Just using our brain here, you know what I mean? So this is a good one to go to. When you read it all in context, it undeniably shows that these black Portuguese Jews were literal black people in the modern sense of the word black. Now I also wanted to go over this part one last time to further demonstrate that the writer is in fact claiming and suggesting that these black Portuguese Jews resembled blacks in America and Ethiopians because of their black skin complexion, their literal black skin complexions. We know this because, he says, this blackness in those people must therefore proceed from the blood or race, and it may perhaps be on account of the malediction of Noah on Cam, This is Ham, his disrespectful son, as the diversity of languages was the curse of Nimrod and of the giants that were building the Tower of Babel. So he's clearly making reference to the curse of Ham here. And for those of you who don't know what it is, we're going to take a quick look at it real quick and see what that is. The curse of Ham is described in the book of Genesis as imposed by the patriarch Noah upon Ham's son Canaan. It occurs in the context of Noah's drunkenness and is provoked by a shameful act perpetrated by Noah's son Ham, who saw the nakedness of his father. The exact nature of Ham's transgression and the reason Noah cursed Canaan when Ham had sinned have been debated for over 2,000 years. This is the part we want right here. The story's original purpose may have been to justify the biblical subjugation of the Canaanites to the Israelites, but in later centuries, the narrative was interpreted by some Christians, Muslims, and Jews as an explanation for black skin, as well as justification for slavery of black people. So, the curse of Ham is an idea that it's not biblical, but it's the idea that anybody with black skin is a descendant of Ham, Noah's son Ham. They used to teach that Noah cursed Ham's seed, and that Ham's seed, all his descendants, were black because of that curse. So when we go here and we see that he's making reference to the curse of Ham, and then he goes on to say that this blackness must be in the blood or race, as Marmol argues, can be further proved from this observation made that the Jews of the Portuguese race, always marrying one with the other, the children resemble their father's and mother's complexion. So just a little bit ago, I pointed out how he first made reference to blacks in America, right here, which never produced any native black throughout all America, he says here, which never produced any native black. Then he went on to the blackness of Ethiopians right here. Then he makes reference to the curse of Ham that we just read right here. Right after that, he makes reference to the blackness of the Jews of the Portuguese race. Clearly, he's talking about a people that were black, like the blacks in America during this time period, like black Ethiopians. And we know that not only because of the context provided when he mentioned blacks in America and black Ethiopians, but when he mentions the curse of Ham, which is an ideology that has never been placed upon any other people other than people who resembled black Africans or black Africans.